Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and I am here today to review the first two episodes of Grotesquerie. And this is a new Ryan Murphy show? I mean, it's probably a limited series, but nowadays TV shows are basically all miniseries. They're all limited series. They're all like just extended movies. And I talked a little bit about this a couple of months ago on the Fallout New Vegas playthrough. I made a big deal about it. I was like, what the fuck is up with that? And because I didn't want to see Travis Kelce acting. I thought it kind of sounded stupid, and I don't know, I wasn't interested. And then what happened tonight, unfortunately, which I feel terrible about it, but what happened tonight was that, I have to watch TV on my mom's old phone if I'm watching it live. And her phone was not charged the whole day. So it is currently charging, and I am unable to watch Hell's Kitchen right now live, which is really sad because, Hell's Kitchen is like a big thing for me on this channel, and it's probably one of my favorite things that I review. It's so much more fun than MasterChef, and yet it's not. And so that's the reason why I'm reviewing this show. I mean, I was kind of up in the air over whether I would review this show or not. So anyways, this show is it's not a true crime show. It's a crime horror drama show starring Niecy Nash as this detective. I think they said her name was Lois. And it's all about her investigating these religious crimes where there's this crazy guy. I guess he's a guy. It might be. I mean, the shadow looks like a guy. But shadows can be deceiving, I guess. And he wears a little hat, too. He wears a hat like Heisenberg from Breaking Bad. So I don't know what's up with that hat. And he just completely obliterates people. I mean, he commits the worst crimes. And, one of the things that I didn't like about this premiere, because, I mean, this is a premiere. And, we talked a lot last week about how The Penguin was the perfect example of how to do a TV show premiere. And I'm kind of being a little bit harsh on Ryan Murphy today because even though a lot of his shows have sucked, a lot of the American Horror Stories, like the most recent one with Kim Kardashian was like a complete fail, a lot of his premieres have always been really good. Like, he'll have a really strong premiere, and the premiere will be really meaty, and there's a lot of substance there, and then the show goes downhill from there. This premiere, it kind of felt like a little bit like, I don't know, like maybe this was just a vehicle to let Niecy Nash give a really good performance. Because with this whole crime story, they start off with this like really cliche kind of like, I don't want to say cliche, or did I just say cliche? Yeah, I did. But they start off with this like cliche thing of like, this is the worst crime that's ever been committed. This is the worst thing these police have ever seen. This is the worst kind of crime. This is the most scary crime. All these like ways to like say that like this is the worst crime ever committed in history. Do you understand that? The worst crime. And in fact, let me take you to the dialogue, because one of the issues I have with this episode was some of the dialogue was a little corny. So let me take you to my notes. So this guy was they have this policeman character, and he's basically like the nervous, upset policeman. Like, he is literally on the same level of emotion every single time you hear him talk. Every single time you hear him talk, he's like, it's really bad. Detective, it's really, really bad in there. And he says, if this isn't a hate crime, I don't know what is. And she says, what kind of hate crime is this? Who are they hating? And the guy's like, it's hate against everything. Like, it's just really, really silly, like over the top stuff like that. And then, right after they're at this crime scene, there's this really strange, thing that happens where all of a sudden you get this, like, 15-minute break where it deals with Detective Lois's, personal life. Her husband is on a ventilator, and this nurse, scolds her for not, like, talking to him and not, like, being loving to him, even though he's on a ventilator. She just comes in there and plays Candy Crush on her phone and shit, and I thought that was really funny, but, like, it was a weird story structure choice to have this, like, extended break right after they just showed you the crime scene. Like, right after that, instead of talking about what we saw at this crime scene, they go into this little break about her personal life, and it was kind of, like, weird to me. So I thought that they could have rearranged these events in the episode. They should have put the next stuff where it deals with explaining the crime after that, and then after that you show the break with her personal life, and she has a daughter who really wants to be on this game show or something, and her daughter's cool too. Like, all the actors in this episode are pretty good. Like, I didn't really have a problem with the acting, except for I guess it's not really the actors' fault too at the same time, because you can't really blame that cop for, just being on the same level of emotion in every scene that he's in, when every scene that he's in, requires that, so I won't blame him. And then, this is another cliche, so there wasn't really an elaboration on this, but Detective Lois said that she's seen something like this before, something like this crime that was committed against this family. Where have we seen that before? Literally every single detective show or movie ever, like, and then it'll probably be like a personal connection to her somehow. I'm just making a guess at this point. Like that Little Things movie with Denzel Washington where he's like, this seems familiar to me. And then the whole twist at the end is that it turns out that, he fucked everything up and he killed the only witness to the killer. And God, that movie was stupid. I will say this is a lot better. This show is a lot better than The Little Things. Okay, do not watch The Little Things on Hulu. It is horrible. And it sucks, and that's a little tangent, but I saw that movie in theaters. I suffered watching that movie in theaters. That was a choice. That was back when I was really, really trying on this channel. Trying too hard. So then Lois and this nun reporter, I don't know the nun reporter's name. It's funny because I saw her on the poster, and I thought that she was Chloe Sevigny, but I thought she looked a little weird for Chloe Sevigny. She looked a little different, and it turned out, that is not Chloe at all. That is a completely different actress. She's like, I guess she's a new up-and-comer, and I thought that she was pretty good, actually. I thought that she was, they talk all the time on Twitter. These Ryan Murphy fanboys and fangirls, they talk all the time about how attractive, like, for the most recent show, the Menendez Brothers show, like, they just go on and on and on and on about how sexy and good-looking that the characters are. And so I just want to show the same kind of attention to the female characters on these Ryan Murphy shows. And I gotta say, she was pretty cute. Like, I gotta say, like, I'm really excited to see more of her. Like, she's kind of like Chloe Sevigny, but a little weirder in a good way. Yeah. That's like the most I can say. Like, I'm not one of those people, like one of those like 40-year-old like wine moms who posts on Twitter about how she's thirsty over Evan Peters. You know, and this is another tangent. You guys, did you see on Twitter, there was this one woman, and she's like obsessed with Evan Peters. She is like obsessed with him, and she's gotten a ton of photo ops with him, and she saw him at the airport, and she took a picture of him. Like, God, like, people are really crazy nowadays. Like, I don't know what's going on with people anymore. Like, people just really, they're getting a little nuts. And, anyways, I hope that she's not the killer in this show. That'd be pretty hilarious. That'd be like a really meta twist. Like, you know. Okay, anyways. She wanted to talk, the nun reporter, she wanted to talk to the detective because she has this kind of failing religious online news site, and it is not getting enough viewers, so she wants to get more viewers by talking about some horrific crime, the most horrific crime of the century. And this was really weird. So I guess the whole concept is she's going to be helping the detective because she's really knowledgeable, she's really smart, as well as being really attractive. And she's going to help out the detective solve the case. She's going to kind of be the Hannibal Lecter in this scenario. But there was this weird way of establishing their relationship and their rapport with each other, where she was like, why are you showing me and telling me all this stuff? You know, why are you being so nice to me? And Niecy Nash is like, because you're a woman. Because you're a woman. Like, basically, like, I guess the sentiment here is like that this is the first ever female reporter in the history of America or something. Like, it was just a really weird way of like, really? So basically she's saying, like, if this was like a guy who was doing like a religious website or news whatever, that she wouldn't really be as open with him. Like, that's just really odd. Yeah. That's weird. I didn't get that. I thought that was stupid. And then there's another crime that happens at this motel. A couple of these drug addicts are sitting around, and then all of a sudden they get cut into pieces and displayed up on the walls. And I didn't mention, but the first family, the father got cooked in the oven, and the family was forced to eat his flesh and his organs and shit. And then the baby was boiled in a pot, and the mom and the two other children died of heart attacks. Which is like, it's so extreme, you know, it's just so extreme that it's hard to take it seriously. But this kind of stuff is possible, you know. Like, I've seen cases like this. There was this one case in particular, I think, where the crazy wife like killed the husband and then fed pieces of him to the kids or something. And, you know, there's been some stuff like that, but it was just a little over the top. And anyways, at the second crime scene, the nun character, the nun reporter, she just shows up out of nowhere, is like a jump scare. And I thought that was really weird. That was another kind of like, because there is a little bit of a question of like, oh, is she the killer because she's so knowledgeable? She makes all these guesses about things, but, you know, it's that typical thing of she's too obvious to be the killer. So you know that she's not the killer. But it was still pretty hilarious. She shows up and it's like, oh my God, what the hell is she doing here? And, yeah. And then I'm just looking at my notes. See, I never realized that you could do a voice memo and look at the notes app at the same time. It's really, really helpful because I don't have to use the shitty-ass computer. My computer, this is another tangent, my computer is from 2013, and for some reason it's so slow, it's buggy, and it just does not work well anymore, and I really need to get a new computer, among other things. But then finally, after the second crime, the killer shows up at the detective's house and she chases him off. And she tries to shoot him too. She pulls her gun out and just shoots at him like a million times. And she's like, shit. You know, like, I didn't get him. Damn it. And yeah. I really liked that sequence though because it reminded me... In fact, the show reminded me a little bit of Long Legs, which was a terrible, terrible, overrated piece of trash movie that came out this year. That was like similar. It had like religious crime. It had a nun character. And it had a very similar sequence where the killer goes to the detective's house. But the difference is, in that movie, the main character, she's probably one of the worst movie characters in movie history. And she was like... Sorry, the whole movie, you know, she was so obvious about where she was, and she was like trembling in fear. She could barely do anything, and she just, it was so bizarre, the choices that she made in that movie, and so unbelievable that she was even an FBI agent. And this detective, you know, she handled herself so much better, and she was so much more confident and so much more believable. And so I gotta say that, like, this is what that character should have been in Long Legs. And then finally, the nun reporter and her, I think that they're at the hospital because also the detective, she is going to be a little bit more open with her husband who's on the ventilator, and she's going to talk with him more, and she even gets in the bed with him and lays down with him and everything. And I like that scene. That was probably my favorite scene of the episode because it didn't have anything to do with crimes or anything. It was just like this really personal kind of character moment, and I thought that it was really nice and sweet. And I was so glad that he didn't wake up too, because I thought like, oh, they're gonna totally turn this into like a Hallmark movie type of thing, and he suddenly wakes up when she lies down with him, but he didn't. You know, they'll probably save that for the last episode or something, but, you know, I really liked that scene. You know, she gave a really good performance, Niecy Nash. The acting was pretty damn good, you know. That's been something that's kind of consistent with Ryan Murphy shows, too, is that even if the shows are bad, the acting will be really good. And finally, as I mentioned before, she has one last talk with the nun reporter. And I have not seen the second episode yet, but the first episode ends with kind of like another corny line. Great. A religious psychopath. Like, what? Like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, so you're more scared of a religious psychopath than a regular one? Or what is that? Like, it was such a weird line. You know, a lot of weird lines in this episode. Like, that would be my biggest criticism, is a lot of corny dialogue. So anyways, I would give the first episode a B-. I'm definitely looking forward to watching the second episode. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Okay. Hey everybody, and I am back. I just finished episode 2. Okay. As you guys can tell, I was not a fan. I thought the first episode was okay. I mean, it was... I mean, I already I literally just said the grade. I gave it a B minus. This episode was not very good. There were a lot of and I know that I'll probably repeat the word weird in this video over and over again. There were just a lot of weird choices in this show. And I know that that's something where it's like, well, weird is relative, Marco. Like, what do you mean weird? And it's like, when you watch this show, you'll understand it. It's kind of like how in The Exorcist, there's that part where Father Karras is, on the way home, or he's going to the hospital to visit his mother. I can't remember. I haven't seen that movie in full in a long time. But, it's kind of like that, when he sees all the weird people and the weird things happening, and it's just kind of you see these weird, creepy things that interrupt, the rest of the story that's going on, so that, everything in the world is messed up and weird and scary or something. It's this thing of, we're trying to make things scary and creepy in this really artificial and obvious way. We're trying to make things really, really over the top, push the limits on what we can show on television, even though this is an FX show, so it's kind of there's not really any limits. So I don't know, man. This was a weird episode. And I know that I sound like a terrible reviewer, but it's just, I don't know how else to describe it. Let's just go through what happened, and yeah. So the husband was cheating on Lois. We see a flashback, and I gotta say, I'm kind of tired of these TV shows and movies where the marriage and this family or any family is depicted as one of the partners cheats on the other one because they have an unhappy marriage and they're really close to separating, or they're gonna separate, or they have separated. I'm really sick and tired of that type of thing being normalized. I know that it's basically to create more drama so that her character is really sad that he's on a ventilator, and so she's a lot more desperate, and she's a lot more she wishes that he would come back so that they could repair things. But it just comes across as so cliche at this point. I think that it would be not cliche if you had the main family in a show or a movie be a happy nuclear family. For some reason, they don't like depicting that anymore. It's the same thing when you see all these kids' movies. It's always what, guys? Single mom. Every single one nowadays. Every single one. It's like a prerequisite requirement. You want to make a kids movie? You want to make a TV show? You want to make a movie? You better not have a mother and father happily married together. They have to be unhappy. One has to cheat on the other one so that we can show the world that families are bad, families don't work out, marriage is bad, and women should be alone and all by themselves doing what they want to do. I mean, I'm getting sick and tired of this shit. And, this show, it got a little woke in the second episode, and I'm going to talk about that later. I rarely use the word woke, but it did get a little woke, and that really pissed me off too, because it was really cringeworthy. It was a really weird thing. And here I go saying the word weird again. I mean, you might as well change the title of this show. Don't call it Grotesquerie. Call it weird. Rachel Ziegler from fucking the Token Snow White. Weird. That would be her review of this episode. So then we have the nurse in modern day, or the present day, it's not the both the scenes are the modern day, but the nurse is once again chastising the detective for not being loving enough to her husband. And there's all this corny, crappy dialogue between them. I don't want to get into it. It just, I don't even know if I should, like, expend the energy into, like, going through all this stuff in minute detail, because it's like, this is some Ryan Murphy shit. You know, this is some weird, like, shit. But then, speaking of weird, the detective Lois, she catches the nurse jerking off and molesting her husband. And apparently she does this all the time. I didn't know, and you know, I know that obviously the brain has to be active while you're in a coma or whatever, but, like, I didn't know that. I didn't know that someone who's in a coma could be jacked off. I mean, is that really possible, guys? Like, is that, like, medically possible? It's fucking hilarious. And so, like, there's this whole confrontation with that, and literally nothing happens. You know, like... She just threatens a detective. She threatens her and says, "Look, I'm gonna move your husband to a worse place than this if you don't let me continue jerking him off." And you think, is the detective gonna do anything with this? She just committed a crime. Is she gonna turn her into her superiors? Is she gonna arrest her? No, she doesn't do anything, guys. She doesn't do fucking anything. It's just so ridiculous, this show. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. Anyways, oh yeah. Talk about cliches in detective stories and crime stories. Did I mention that the main detective has an alcohol problem? I mean, that is like a typical thing, like, you know, the in a noir movie or whatever, like, you have the detective and they're an alcoholic and they smoke all the time. Like, come on. This is exactly what I said the show was going to be. This is exactly what I said. I said cliche. Cliche after cliche after cliche. And then we're introduced to this priest character, and he is the priest whom Sister Megan, the hot one, is watching. I don't know any, like, church dynamics, so I don't know, like, I don't know, like, I guess they're a part of the same church. Yeah, I guess that's what you would say. But you can tell that he has a thing for her because she's hot in a weird way. And he takes her to this restaurant after church, and he is like a typical, like, modern day, like, youthful priest, where he's like, he used to be a personal trainer, and he's weird, and he likes true crime. And this is where we got to some cringeworthy stuff, is that you guys know that there's been a lot of controversy with how Ryan Murphy has portrayed real life events on television. I mean, I was the one who complained about it first. I'd like to point out, like, all these people, like, jumping on the bandwagon this year. It's like, where were you last year, or the year before, I mean, when he was, like, romanticizing Dahmer and shit and not telling the true story? You know, where were you when that happened? Because I was criticizing it then. And so it's like, it's really not a surprise. I mean, I expected that with the Menendez brothers show. So I still might finish that. But anyways, the next season of the Monster Show is going to be about Ed Gein. And Ryan Murphy in this episode, I don't know if he wrote this episode. Let me check really quickly. This priest character, he's fanboying over Ed Gein. Let's see. Well, I can't really tell. They have 3 writers here. It says created by, written by on the episode. So he could have written those lines, or the other 2 could have. I don't know. But regardless, it kind of felt like this cringeworthy thing of like, ooh, I'm getting really excited about the next season of Monsters. So I'm going to put in this little line about Ed Gein because I'm really, really excited about that. And I can't wait to romanticize him in some weird way. I mean, that's going to be a weird show for sure. Like a whole season about Ed Gein. There's hardly anything to write about. Like, his story is pretty, like, short. Like, there's that's like a case where you feel like there's a lot more that could probably be explored, but somehow it hasn't been. Like, apparently, well, okay, I won't get into that, but, it is an interesting case. I mean, he was creepy, for sure. Then there's this other cringeworthy part where Sister Megan is eating these fries. She's got a hamburger and fries. Ow! Sorry, I just hurt my toe. Hurt my foot, too. That was random and weird. Sister Megan eats these fries. And this reminded me of the Green Hornet movie. If you guys have ever seen the Green Hornet, that movie was really terribly written. Probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And in that movie, there's this big joke about how there's this restaurant and their food is really orgasmic. Get it? Because orgasms and sex. And so Sister Megan says that the fries are orgasmic. And I was like, oh God. Oh, God. And then we see the priest at home, and he's a total weirdo at home too. He's on some Da Vinci Code bullshit. He's fucking whipping himself after he jerks off to the memory of Sister Megan eating French fries. And I thought that was cringeworthy because it just felt like more jerk-off material for Ryan Murphy watching this guy almost fully naked, like whipping himself, blood everywhere, And then there's this like long tangent in this episode that's just all about Sister Megan and the priest. And basically, she really wants to solve this crime so that she can look like the savior of the church or something. And there's, gotta be something funny going on with that. Who knows, but still, I think it's too obvious for her to be the bad guy. But after this long tangent, all of a sudden, Detective Lois is on a mission to get this guy whose blood that they matched with at the last crime scene. And you're just sitting there thinking, whoa, wait, hold on a second. This is random. Like, all of a sudden, she's on this SWAT van and they're on this mission. And then also, like, this is just another red herring. The guy is either dead or he's just a weirdo and he's not the killer. And then, boom, he is killed and there's some weird crime scene display. And then there's more puking. In the first episode, they had this graphic puking shot. It feels like they're showing a lot of puking to seem more hardcore and scary or something. And that was cringeworthy too. And I also gotta say, at this point, with all the displaying and shit, this show reminds me of Hannibal in like kind of like a basic bitch way. So I think that my subtitle for this show is Basic Bitch Hannibal. And then finally, there's a final supper recreation with a bunch of homeless people used in the display. They were all killed and displayed in this church or whatever. And then when the detective is calling them homeless people, this is where we get to the woke part. Sister Megan corrects her and says unhoused people. You know, because that's the woke term for homeless. You know, you can't say homeless anymore. You have to say unhoused, which is the same exact fucking thing. They're fucking homeless people. Grow up, bitch. And finally, the main character, she ends the episode with like, okay, I'm just gonna go home and drink alcohol. And yeah, that's how this episode ends. This show is goofy and weird and kind of like a joke. This is almost like a parody of detective stuff. It's almost like satire. It's too weird, too over the top to believe. And the main character, you know, this show really makes detectives look stupid and weird because, like, she barely does any crime solving. She mostly just drinks and, you know, goes to the hospital to visit her husband and, you know, watches her daughter eat the entire kitchen. That's another thing that happened in this episode, is that, like, there's this whole scene where they're at the dinner table together. It's the middle of the night, and the daughter is eating like an entire chicken or something. I don't know what she was eating. She had this huge thing that was opened up, and she's just sitting there stuffing her face with this food. And it's and the mom, like, you can tell she just wants to get up and smack her and take the food away from her and tell her to stop fucking stuffing your fat face. And she's just sitting there like, so you do a lot of drinking, Mom? So, I let you miss your husband. That's basically like a whole scene in this episode. So I would give this episode a C-. I felt like this was a huge downgrade from the first episode. We also still haven't seen Travis Kelce yet, which means he's either like a huge red herring or he's the bad guy or something. I'm not really sure. It would be really hilarious if he got to be the bad guy on the first ever show that he's been on, or been in, show or movie. You know, like, that would be a real, like, I don't know. Oh, and I should also mention Sister Megan shows up at this restaurant earlier on in the episode, and she has a bruise on her face. So that's kind of like a red flag of, like, where did she get that from? I don't know. She says that she fell and hit her face, which is like a typical like lie. So who knows what's going on with that. And anyways, please like this video and comment and tell me tell me what you thought of this shitty show. It's not that good so far. It's the first episode was okay, but this episode is not really as good. And then please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more Grotesquerie reviews, because I guarantee that this is going to be one entertaining season. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.